I almost want to say it started with this. 1984 Toyota Corolla SR5. 1983 Toyota Corolla GT APEX. Real Torino, real Japanese car. We are absolutely buried in specialty work, especially for AE86. I have, as of now, October 2022, I've been quoting customers June of next year before you can get your long-term AE86 stuff in here. I'm drowning you guys. These two cars have been here for a long time, and rightfully so, a lot of work has gone into both cars. Quick recap, this former SEMA 2019 show car has been slowly updated for track use. This ex-drift car from Japan is slowly being turned back into a more streetable car. Unfortunately, because it has been garaged for so long, while it has been in the US, we have encountered problems while working on this car, customary with a car that does not get driven very much. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Again, 1983 Toyota Corolla GT APEX. Yes sir, right-hand drive car. Some cool features. Got the digital dash, auto climate control, only on the GT APEX. Funny because Rico's 83 Cressida also had the same climate control, except it was in Fahrenheit. Just pretty funny because both those cars were 83s. Ex-drift car, you can kind of tell because there is a water temp, oil pressure, and oil temperature gauge. Got this shift point indicator. I have no idea what that thing does. There is also some sort of ISM fuel controller. I did not want to mess with this guy because I can tell this engine's pretty tuned, like with cams and high comp or something, and I did not want to mess with, although antiquated, someone's probably set this for the right fueling and stuff in Japan. Pretty cool, got some OG Watanabes on there, 14-inch. There was actually an FD big brake kit with two-piece rotors. I think the owner wanted something more serviceable, easier to get parts in the US. So we actually installed this T3 Baby Daddy kit. The customer originally bought a Big Daddy kit and it obviously was not gonna fit under his watts. So thank you to T3. We got everything sorted and the Baby Daddy big brake kit fits very well under these 14s. I had to cut out and mock up the template with which T3 offers on their website. But yeah, these brakes feel, stop, work, and installed great. I'm absolutely happy. Highly recommend the Baby Daddy kit from T3. You can also see we got that new cap on there. Doing the rotors means you're taking the hubs off, so thank you to Battle Garage. Brand new front wheel bearing kit, which also includes these brand new dust caps for the hubs. I'm not an expert, but GT APEX, I'm sure they come factory with power mirrors, sunroof. Got my third wiper and my third squirter back there. Third squirter, that sounds kind of nasty, sorry about that. This unleaded fuel sticker, I don't know if that's a Japanese thing or someone put that on in the US for some reason. Pretty sweet carbon hood. I'm not sure what company makes this hood. But the hood's not important, what's important is under the hood. Why don't we take a look? Alright, so again, restoration being the theme, a lot of times what I get here is parts that are missing and the owner wanting to restore the car back to OEM. This car used to have some really funky hood struts that did not work, so whoever in Japan drilled a hole and put a hair clip through the gas hood struts, which means this was a headache to keep the hood up. So what we did, we sourced an OEM hood prop, and we got the OEM Toyota hood prop grommet thanks to Battle Garage. So we can open the hood like regular. Huh, what a concept. Pretty cool. This air diverter must be the legit one because it goes all the way back there. I know some of the other companies that make these are like cut shorter. We got this Tech Arts radiator cap from Battle Garage. I thought it matched the wrinkle purple intake and cam covers very nicely. Purple's the theme. Yeah, the owner's original radiator cap was actually swollen in here. Got some Japanese headers. Yeah, this thing's definitely got a chop, so at idle. So I'm sure there's cams and it's very quick, even for a Japanese car. So I'm sure this has some sort of state of tune or build in it. Pretty cool custom catch can breather setup, which means there's welded provisions for those AN lines. Cusco brake master stopper for right-hand drive. Oh, we did a coolant flush. Oh man, when cars sit and get neglected, the coolant gets nasty and the block rusts on the inside. Heartbreaking. We did a real flush of the cooling system and refilled it with the proper Toyota Red. Toyota Red, please guys, don't use that generic green stuff, please. It's really terrible for these cars. There's some cool stuff, I'm sorry, I hope you guys can see, but non-power steering AC bracket, you can see someone's powder coated and polished majority of the brackets on this car. Polished alternator bracket. I'm curious if this came factory in this trim. Manual rack with AC, I wouldn't doubt it, but someone correct me below if you could only get power steering in a GT Apex. Alright, apologize again that we can't take a look under the car, but here's some of the work we did. There was 3 major oil leaks on this car. The rear main seal, and there was some aftermarket sensor provisions on the oil pan that were a nightmare to get to seal, but we got them. So this thing, like this, used to leave a puddle of oil on the shop floor every single night. Now you can see dry underneath. Look how clean that is. Look how clean that is, Dexter. Oh man, Dexter, you're so shy. Clutch fluid flush, transmission and diff service. Some of the coilover lock rings were loose. A lot of bolts were loose. I'm not surprised on a 30, 40-year-old car. That used to be an X-Drift car. Oh, I forgot. This thing has the Greddy oil cooler kit with a remote mount. We took apart the remote mount, cleaned it, resealed it because the remote mount was leaking in a bunch of places. Some of the rod joints were clocked in correctly. Got this car in alignment. A terrible mismatch of brake lines. So we installed the Baby Daddy Big Brake Kit came with stainless lines for the Willwood calipers. Again, because this is a garage queen, unfortunately with cars that are not driven often, mystery problems come up once we start driving and road testing these cars. I put almost every car here through a thorough road test because if I want something to break or leak, I want it to break and leak on me, solve the problem here rather than the customer having to deal with it. And that's exactly what happened here. So the surprise oil leak was from the rear main seal area. As soon as we fixed all the other oil leaks, every time we'd go around the block, oil would pool up at the bottom of the transmission, customary with what you think a rear main seal leak would look like. Taking out the transmission, not only was the rear main seal plate leaking because it was sealed incorrectly, but actually the front transmission seal was leaking. And that's really common. What you think may be a rear main seal leak may actually be on the transmission side. So maybe like the torque converter seal on an Autotrans car. On the back of these 4A heads, that coolant block on the back of the head will leak and drip down and then look like a rear main seal leak because it mixes with like all the dirt and other stuff and ends up looking like engine oil. So beware, just because there's oil on the bottom of the transmission does not actually mean that it's absolutely the rear main seal that's leaking. Something else could be leaking. Oh, almost forgot. Of course, it's the little details that matter. Got this OEM Toyota hood prop holder from Battle Garage. If you're wondering where these N3 flares come from, this is exactly the shop in Japan. N3, because they're even bigger than N2 flares. Just wanted to show you guys in our customer waiting room. I have had this car, and now this car here at the Autohaus. Isn't that right, Dexter? Really special car to me, no joke. 2019 is when I first really met Rico. Seeing this car on the SEMA floor totally changed my perspective of how big the world is, what's possible, all this attention that this car got after SEMA, to the point where I think someone in England, this was the 100K car, and somebody in England even stepped it up and made the 200K Corolla. And honestly, it started with this guy. As a Corolla guy in Corolla history, this car being here and me being able to work on this car is a big deal. I still gotta pinch myself that this car's here. Also nerve-wracking because the caliber of this car, what is expected in the repair and care of this car, how much money and effort has previously put in this car. Ton of weight on my shoulders, if you guys can imagine. Yeah, again, 2019 being a big life-changing year for me. Saw this at SEMA, met Nakai at SEMA, thanks to this guy actually. And I think at the end of 19, I actually quit my day job, started this full time. And I almost want to say it started with this. So, long time here, a lot of work. Let's go see what we did to this car on this visit. All right, 1984, this is an SR5. I think Rico actually rescued this thing from the junkyard and it sat in his backyard for quite a while till he transformed it into this. Alright, so let's see some of the work. Customary with a car that was once a show car and is now transitioning to a track car. A lot of teething issues and maintenance issues. The car sat for quite a while after SEMA, and these radiator hoses actually started deteriorating. The coolant was long overdue to get changed, so we flushed the system. Again, Toyota Red in the system now. This overflow tank never knew it was going to have the rigors of a track car, so ended up the bracket where it bolts to the block cracked and broke off. This is aluminum. We had our neighbor welder weld it back up, add reinforcements. I added 2 exhaust grommets. There's basically a circular grommet on each side. I fabricated a metal spacer so you can actually torque down these Allen bolts. And so now this guy has some give, and those grommets will eat up some of the vibration when this car sees the track. Marcus Fry Racing built these headers. These are one-off, and these are different from the ones at SEMA. This car has an entire fire suppression system, so you can see the nozzle for the engine bay. Same thing when a car sits, the rubbers deteriorate. All you guys with ITBs, I would double check all your vacuum caps. We replaced both vacuum caps for the ITBs. We double checked all the vacuum lines for the manifold. Those commonly get baked from the heat, get crunchy and split apart and deteriorate. We did a full nut and bolt check on this car, which took absolutely forever, especially because all the race car stuff on it, and we'll show you what we're talking about underneath. This cooling fan was inops, so this engine had an overheating problem, an intermittent overheating problem, which got progressively worse and worse. Not only was it exacerbated by a coolant leak from these bad hoses, but also, so that big Spall puller fan probably draws a ton of amps, let's just say 30 amps. I think Rico and Marcus said, the guy who wired up this car, they were not happy with the wiring, so not only are they not going to use him, but they're putting a new harness in this car. This is what he used for the fan connector. In short, this is substandard stuff, and I'll show you guys why. Not only is this connector probably not rated for an extended 30 amp use, but you can kind of see that brown burn mark in there. You guys can see the connector got burned. I noticed coolant at temp to where the link set the fans to turn on, or even with the manual fan switch, the fans would not turn on, and I saw this burned portion. If you like and like scrub the connectors a little bit, the fan would turn back on. But yeah, we were absolutely not going to reuse this thing. Gonna be tough to see, but I spliced in this big weather pack connector. So this guy is actually rated correctly for the 10 to 12 gauge wires and for, you know, extended 30 amp use. Way bigger, but this is absolutely what's necessary to run this powerful Spall fan. Before we lift up the car and take a look, there's a lot of cool trick stuff inside, top side on this car. Why don't we take a look? Why don't we take a look, Dexter? Cool, you can see the fire suppression back there, some of the hard lines for it. Got the doors cut out, polycarb windows. Yeah, the back glass on a hatch is like horrendously expensive, so this definitely cuts a ton of weight off the car. I think they were saying they don't like to use a polycarb front windshield because it scratches too easy. This runs on a Link Monsoon, just like on my car. Got the Link digital dash, really trick tilt-in remote pedal setup. As I sit here, I gotta pinch myself because I remember I was so careful around this thing at SEMA. Now I've had to lean and crawl all over this car. Yeah, Rico was complaining about some of the pedal response as far as how far you push the pedal versus the throttle response you got. So we adjusted the pedal ratio right here. We moved this rod 1 hole down so that a little bit of application, the butterflies in the throttles will open up more. The same concept applies for adjusting the brake pedal ratio. Also, you can see it's got a custom cable. That cable had some slack in it just from regular use. Again, fire suppression for the driver. All the fire nozzles will go off if you pull that thing. Gorgeous cage, again by Marcus Fry Racing. Crawl over our cage. Check out, we got a custom fuel cell, and then the fire suppression bottle in the back. Got our remote brake bias adjuster for those remote pedals, and then our master controls. This has a J160. Underneath that boot is the reverse lockout shifter from JSP. That's new since SEMA. T3 heel plates. Driving the car around, I actually like these heel plates. They make sense in a car like this. And then you can see integrated in the cage, custom mounts for that pedal box, custom steering column, steering wheel setup. You can see that U-joint and that bearing on the firewall down there. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous cage. Got a monkey bar full of cages in here. or I should say a monkey bar full of tubes in here. It still astounds me that someone's brain can come up with this design and then the same brain and hands can weld this all together. I think we take for granted a true craftsman these days, you know, in the age of Amazon Prime. Like, can't a robot do this for you? Or can't you do this in 2 days? We definitely take for granted our trades and craftspeople, because I don't think in my entire life I could do this cage. Check out the door bars. If you guys are wondering why there's this box, it's because Rico's literally a foot taller than me. And I put this box behind me since the seats are fixed so I can drive the car. I have to do that for a lot of customer cars, actually. It is terribly hot in this car. This fan is definitely not enough. Alright, let's have ourselves a seat. Show you guys how this switch box works. So, on, we can hear the fan turn on. Makes all those cool noises. Sorry, let's see that home screen one more time. Nice. Alright, awesome, let's check it out. Again, full nut and bolt check, full steering suspension. Some of the brackets for the over fenders, some of the hardware was missing, some of it came loose. I'm not surprised for all the track days Rico's done in this already. These guys have a special story. So I believe these are number 26 out of what was supposed to be a limited run of 25. So what makes these limited is that smoky black face. Supposedly only 25 were allowed to be made, just in time for Rico. His buddy JC Pepino at Work Wheels hooked him up, and supposedly there was only enough paint for this last set, number 26. These are also the limited edition center caps too. I believe you can't buy those center caps anymore. Custom garage speed in Japan. Rico, by some miracle, deep dove on Google and found this company that made the N3 body kit for this car. We gotta get him the new JSP oil pan that just got released too. Same thing, I'm not a huge fan of excessive stuff, unfortunately. I'd love to see the JSP beam swap mounts. The oil pan will sit lower, but that also means there'll be hood clearance, because I know Rico has problems with hood hitting the engine cover. Cool, got the functional integrated brake ducts, E3 tension rods, Cusco front sway bar. Alright, I was just looking, this is also the Baby Daddy kit. They probably did their homework and realized the Big Daddy kit wasn't gonna fit these wheels. I gotta ask Rico the story about that, but it's just funny, like, this car's got the same kit as that car. T3, I believe these are the super evolved LCAs, and then also the T3 outer tie rods. Oh, I love powder coated stuff. So yeah, powder coated subframe. You can see where those brake ducts end up. The pink is R marks. So again, nut and bolt check the entire car. Probably 3 freaking full days of nut and bolt check on this guy. You can see by that pink mark we also did a transmission and differential service. I got a story for you on that gigantic Ford 8.8 back there. You can see the excessive trans mount for the J160. Marcus built this custom transmission mount. And if you notice, they had to build that because they had to cut the floors out. So they flat bottomed the floors because, again, I'm 5'6". I think Rico's just about a foot taller than me. You guys who are tall know it is almost tough or next to impossible to fit in some of these older Japanese cars. This header back, again, one-off built by Marcus Fry. This is also new since SEMA. I forgot what they had for this, but I know that their aim was to get the decibels quiet enough for Laguna Seca. One-piece drive shaft from South Bay Driveline. No, you can just ask for black if you want it. I'm sure they wanted this sparkly gold. South Bay Driveline's the same shop I use. Been using them for more than 10 years now. If you guys watch our videos, you know, huge advocate for safety. Drive shaft safety loop, same one I use on all our customer cars. Now that this is a track car, I don't know if it was missing from the last service, but absolutely needed with the one-piece drive shaft. So yeah, we added this for Rico this time. And again, just to recap, if for any reason that front U-joint fails and this drive shaft falls all the way down to the floor, it's gonna catapult the car. Pretty cool external fuel filter. Got our lines running up to the fuel cell back there. Got the T3 big brake kit for the rear. I'm not a huge fan of this kit only because you have to get rid of the parking brake. And I know they have a parking brake option, but I think from one Speed Academy video, it's so bulky it doesn't clear a lot of wheels. From an otherwise very nice big brake kit. Totally forgot annex coilovers on this car. Ford 8.8, if this big monstrosity wasn't obvious enough. Look, it's so big it doesn't even fit in this camera screen. I believe Secret Factory USA up in Sacramento constructed this axle for Rico. These are the T3 weld-on brackets for Ford 8.8 conversion. T3 rear panhard, Cusco rear sway bar, the drop mounts from T3 for the sway bar, but so gigantic I bet you Marcus had to make this spacer to get clearance for this monster back here. Custom radium fuel cell and housing for the fuel cell. I think Marcus had to be a Corolla guy in his past life because only Corolla guys know about this panhard brace. So yeah, real welded on panhard brace. If you guys not in the know on corners, especially drifting, loads will actually tear this entire panhard bracket completely off. So there's different style panhard braces, and the one on my car bolts right here. But this is a real welded on brace for that panhard mount. Oh man, so another exciting thing, equal length 4 links. You can see the boxed sections, although that was very difficult to tighten this guy down. Yeah, OEM, JDM bumpers front and rear, Sprinter tail lights, just the top parts are blacked out. And again, if you see our pink marks everywhere, horrendous time. 3 days worth of nut and bolt check this guy. This monstrosity, we also did a rear diff service. There is actually a dipstick up here for the rear diff. I believe this thing took 1.5 gallons of gear oil. I'm gonna repeat that one more time, 1.5 gallons. I believe 6 quarts of gear oil in this guy. You can see how much they had to space the hood up to get it to clear the engine cover. What's that chassis doing in the background? Get out of here. So yeah, this car's been here for quite a while. To keep customer confidentiality, we actually did a lot more work on this car that I gotta keep a secret. But yeah, absolute honor and privilege to not only have this car in the shop, but I gotta say privilege twice in a sentence, but have the privilege to work on this car. Definitely a lot of care and respect, without being said, has to be had for a car of this caliber. So a big thanks to Rico for allowing me this opportunity, although we both know it's a very big invoice as well. But in the famous words of Manny Fresh, perfectly to close this out, cars real big, money real big, let me tell you how I live.